Hi, I'm GM Matthew Sadler.
And I'm WIM Natasha Regan. Welcome to this video, which comes from TCEC 17 Superfinal. In this game, we're looking at another Mardel Plata King's Indian, this time the other main line. So here, white plays 11 f3 as opposed to knight d3. Leela is white, and we get a very closed position with a wall of pawns across the board. Leela on its own comes up with some very heavy mainline theory and sacrifices a pawn on c5, which ties black's knight to the queenside. So black has reduced kingside play. The game gets very strategic, a lot of maneuvering, and Leela is able to optimize its pieces and minimize Stockfish's counterplay. And in the end, it turns into a very, very nice white win when Leela does a build-up, threatening sacrifices, and manages to break through the queenside pawns.
Yeah, it's a really, really great game, and I guess this is one of the two games that really completely finished off Stockfish in the Superfinal. So let's have a look at it. Okay, let's have a look at this game. So the opening started d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4. So all these moves are specified, of course, by the TCEC opening book. And this is the classical variation. And then here we get the Mardel Plata variation, typified by black playing knight c6, forcing white really to make a decision in the center, play d4 to d5, and then knight e7. And then we've got this typical structure where white's got a bit more space on the center and queenside, but black's got great opportunities to expand on the kingside with f7 to f5.
So white's often going to try for the break with c5.
Exactly. Now this move, knight e1, we saw it in the previous game, very typical. First of all, it covers the h5 square, actually, so stops the black knight from going to h5 to f4. And also ensures that that white can meet a later f5 with f3, as happens in the game. Knight to d7, and now we get the other main line, which is bishop e3.
So in a previous video, we looked at knight d3.
Exactly, and actually the game proceeded there, knight d3, f5, f3. And then the bishop came to d2 afterwards. I think it was knight f6, bishop d2, and then f4. And the point of putting the bishop on d2 is that you keep the f2 square free for the knight, which helps, hold back a g5 to g4 advance. I think bishop e3 is a little bit more aggressive for white. So after f5, f3, f4, we put the bishop on f2. So this bishop, so obviously g5 to g4 looks like it might come in a little bit quicker for black. On the other hand, that bishop on f2 is very aggressively placed, supporting the c4 to c5 break, and also attacking the a7 pawn later in combination with knight b5. And this was a line that the great Victor Korchnoi really found so many unusual ideas, so many interesting ideas to become mainline theory. Yeah, I mean, he's really did an amazing job on this line. It's a very complicated line for white because, obviously you've always got to watch out for those onrushing kingside pawns from black, and well, it's not easy to judge. So g5 from Stockfish. We're now out of the TCEC book, so both engines are now making it up for themselves. So rook c1. Was Leela's choice, and this is very, very impressive because after knight g6, Leela played the move c4 to c5, and this is
a pawn sacrifice.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really long-term pawn sacrifice. I mean, it took an awful lot of King's Indian practice for white players to come up with this. And well, Leela's just found it by itself basically, and it's really quite amazing. So the idea is to try and make some inroads on black's queenside. If d takes c5, I think what we're doing is going knight d3, and it's something like b6 then b4. We just break open the queenside. It doesn't matter that we're a pawn down. We're just getting in there very, very early. So black always takes with the knight, and then there's this move b4, and well, the move that black really wants to play is knight d7. But here we've got this powerful move knight b5, and the c7 pawn is just not defendable. So I mean, white's getting a very, very early breakthrough there on the queen side, just completely winning in actual fact. So black has to put the knight back onto a6. Yeah, I mean, now we get to the whole, the whole uncertain point about this pawn sacrifice. So black's got a knight on a6. It's not going to find it easy to get back to the kingside. So it means that black's lost an awful lot of kingside attacking power, because that knight normally came to f6 to support g5 to g4. So that's really positive. On the downside, white normally uses that c pawn to play c takes d6 and open up the queenside, as we saw in the previous game. And so white's lost its main break, to actually make stuff happen on the queenside. So this is one of those you have very complicated positions where you're just saying, yeah, I mean, what's going to be more important? Is it the fact that that black's pieces have been restricted, or is it simply the fact that you've lost your some of your attacking potential on the queen side? Is that going to make it difficult for you? So, but I think it's a position that would always appeal to the NNs very much, because essentially the opponent's counterplay has been greatly stopped, and now you can just optimize your pieces within the position, and that's what NNs do, better than anything else.
We'll see in this game that the position remains like this, white being a pawn down kind of pretty much throughout the game, and it in a way it doesn't seem to matter for white's position. You don't really notice it's a pawn down, you just notice it has that black's pieces can't do very much, and that white's pieces are able to improve themselves. So the neural nets are kind of not looking at the material so much as the possibilities in the position.
Exactly. That's so knight d3, h5, and knight b5. So this was a maneuver actually that Korchnoi loved in lots of other systems. The knight on b5 and bishop at f2 attacking the pawn on a7, so white's threatening to get its pawn back. So black plays b6, and well, we saw this in the previous game as well. You just get this weakness from black, and that gives you some sort of point to attack, some sort of entry point. The other thing about it is that it really just fossilizes black's queenside. I mean, c6 is no longer possible. So, I mean, really, we're starting to set ourselves up here for a game in which white is pressing and black is just waiting. And this is especially shown by the next move, which is still mainline theory, but of course Leela finding it all by itself. Bishop e1, slightly mysterious move, but after black's next, you see the point, queen d7, which is actually a novelty from Stockfish. Then we play knight f2. And so the knight on b5 is defended by the bishop on e2. And just as in the previous game, we get this set up with a knight on f2, stopping the pawn from moving to g4. So essentially we've got this little balance at the moment. Leela's balancing the position quite nicely between creating queenside weaknesses and also holding back black's counterplay. So
you have to be quite patient to play this kind of position, don't you? I mean, it's not obvious what the plan is for white in order to make progress. You have to kind of stop everything black can do first of all, and then get on with your plans.
No, I mean, it looks very easy when you play through it, especially at this speed with Leela. But in actual fact, I mean, it's really requiring an awful lot of skill to do all this. It's Stockfish played bishop b7, which to me it's a sort of a move that says, well, okay, I've given up attacking on the king side. I'm just going to sit and wait. Do your best or do your worst. So So Leela reacts by playing the move g4. And this is a really bold move. Here black's got to try and make a decision. Either black's going to keep the kingside closed and say, okay, well, I'm closing the kingside, the centre's closed. I don't believe you can get through just on this very narrow area on the queenside. Or black has to take the decision of, oh, I'm not sure about whether he'll break through in the long term. I've got to keep things open. I think the really human decision is to keep things open. I mean,
yeah, if it was me, I would take that pawn en passant.
That's right. I mean, that is the most natural move. In the engine games, this was working out quite nicely for white. Let's have a little look. What did I have here? Bishop c8, bishop g2. Yeah, this was a Leela against Stockfish game. Queen e7, a3, nice and slowly. King g2. Bishop d7, rook c3, lining up on the c-pawn. You can't take it straight away, by the way, because Stockfish obviously has prepared a nice little trap there. But rook c3 lining up, and then yeah, and then we were getting these types of positions. Queen a4, stopping the knight coming back to d7, check, check, and now Leela played e5 to open up the position. And it's one of those positions where white's 2 pawns down, but he's got all the light squares. The knight's coming into e4. You've got possibilities of lining up on c7. Leela won some and drew some, basically. You know, it's not 100% clear, but it's a very unpleasant defense for black. And of course, black's got no chances whatsoever of ever winning this game. So, but in general, yeah, I mean, I would feel better having some sort of option at doing stuff on the king side. But Stockfish played the move h4 and just said, do your worst. So Leela comes up actually with a very clear plan, a very interesting one. So Queen b3. Funnily enough, I also played some, well, playing my Fat Fritz against Stockfish matches, and Fat Fritz seemed to love putting the knight on h3, just attacking the pawn on g5. It's possible, but somehow I do feel if you're going to invade on the queen side, it really makes sense to have as many pieces as possible there. So I do prefer Leela's idea. Queen b3, rook c8, a4, knight b8, knight a3, a6, just waiting and holding. Knight d1, bishop f6, h3, just solidifying the king side there. And rook a1 and bishop f2, pointing the bishop again towards the queen side, and knight c3. So all these moves are very logical, but what on earth is white doing? Well, in actual fact, white's got a very simple plan here. Actually, white's got 2 possible plans. White's going to play the move a4 to a5. If black doesn't react, then white will follow up eventually by playing the move b4 to b5. If black reacts with b5, then white is going to be ready to sacrifice its piece on b5, and then move its queenside pawns forward. The point is, with the queenside being so narrow, so restricted, an extra piece doesn't matter for black because there's just no space to use it.
Yeah, look at the bishop on d8 and the knight on h8 are going to find it hard to get to the action.
Yeah.
Where these pawns are advancing. Yeah,
I mean, they've got no squares. I mean, they've just got there's no source at all for counterplay, you know, so that's one idea of doing it. The other idea that Fat Fritz came up with, funnily enough, was needs some timing and planning, but to play b5 and then simply maneuver one knight to c4, another knight round to b3, and then play bishop e1, and you're just targeting the pawn on a5, and then you're going to sack on a5. It's a little bit more convoluted, but that also worked in one game that they played. So, and I mean, yeah, what can black do against it? It's going to be pot luck, really, whether black's pieces are, you know, are properly placed to deal with that. I think in the long run, it might even be lost. You know, you just it's certainly not a position I'd like to play as black. So after rook fc1, knight f7, bishop d3. Leela just taking its time, just improving the position nicely. It'll break a5 when it's good and ready for that. So Stockfish took the radical decision to play a5. Yeah, Stockfish not willing to wait, but just trying to break it up. I mean, I don't know really. The point is that, you know, after you play b4, a5, rook a5, that rook is never going to be able to maintain its blockade on a5 because we just chased it away with knight c4. And that means that a5 is completely inevitable. So, yeah, I don't know. I think long term, I don't see how Black can save this, you know, as long as you're playing it with the skill that Leela plays. I would prefer, I think, to make White make the effort to open stuff up and then take my chances when the piece gets sacrificed. You know, but here White doesn't even need to sacrifice a piece. But Leela just so improves its position nicely. Bishop b5, queen b1, knight c4. So you're ready to play a5 when you want. But first of all, Leela will improve its position as much as it possibly can. It's got all the time in the world. Rook b8, king g2. King g6, queen b4. And now bishop, knight d3 rather, and
so swapping off that
queen b3.
Dark square bishop for the knight.
Yeah, I mean, Stockfish takes the decision here to actually swap off some pieces, you know, to try and restrain the White initiative on the queen side. So knight takes f2. King f2, bishop c4, queen c4, and rook a5. So that holds it back for a while. But again, this white knight on c3 is going to come round to c4, chase away that rook, and then we're going to get a4 to a5 in. I mean, it's, you know, again, it's really it's really going to be really difficult for Black. So rook b1, knight a6, rook b5. Rook b3. Leela never rushes, always takes its time to get this stuff. Knight b5, knight g8, rook c2. All the time, I mean, in all these things. I mean, there's a comment that Kasim Zhanov once made about playing Magnus Carlsen in these slightly worse positions. And he said, you don't realize it, but all the time that you're playing against him, he's setting lots of small incidental traps. It's not just the fact that you're being ground, it's also the fact that you've got to watch out all the time that you're not losing a pawn to a sudden tactic. And a lot of these moves from Leela are about that, you know, threatening a sudden little sacrifice to do something. And, you know, if it works, it's a shortcut. If it doesn't work, well, then it'll carry on with its main plan. You know, that's a lot of this shuffling does actually have some sense. It's just that Stockfish is always anticipating any small tactic, basically. King e1, so Leela decides also to improve the position of its king. Knight comes round to c4, rook comes to a7, rook to b2. Now Leela's really teeing up for a4 to a5. Just before playing a4 to a5, it plays this move queen b5, which stops the knight coming round to d7. So stops the knight from ever getting active at all. King there, and now a5. Takes, and this very careful move queen a4 blocks the a pawn, frees the rooks for the b file, and stops the black knight from coming to d7 as well. So how is White going to finish this off? Well, Leela again takes its time. Rook comes to b7, then the rook comes back, and then the rook goes in again, and then the rook comes back. Just these repetitions, it's all sort of part of what Leela does. It you might say it doesn't get paid to win in the fewest moves. It's there for the long haul. So rook b7, and now knight a3. Now it starts optimizing its pieces further. This knight has done a great job on the c4, but now it's going to aim for b5, attacking c7. And this is really nasty again. Knight e8, knight a7, queen a4, oh, knight b5 again, and now queen a3. And in case you're wondering, how bad is this position for black? Well, in my engine games that I ran from this exact position, white won 16 out of 16. So it didn't matter whether Fat Fritz was white or black, or Stockfish was white or black. All the engines were always finishing this off. Let's have a look how Stockfish did that. Well, Stockfish played King G6. If you play a move like Rook C8, for example, that's just another possibility. Then this was how I think this was Fat Fritz against Stockfish went. You just see how easy it is for white to invade, and black is just absolutely powerless just to stop white.
White's just got a much bigger proportion of the board than black here.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's really as if this whole A and B files are just no-go areas for black, and well, that's more than enough for white's pieces to invade, and quite amazing actually. And then after here, the queens get exchanged, the C7 pawn goes, then the D6 pawn goes, and white won very easily. And all the time, you just see how can black get any counterplay? There's just no counterplay whatsoever. It's just. It really is just a position where black's got so much material, but long term he just seems to be completely lost. So Stockfish played King G6, giving back some pawns, just to well, to get a little bit of freedom. Queen takes C7, Rook C8, Queen D7, Rook C7, so exchanging off a pair of rooks, so that's removing some of that counterplay. Stockfish tried to exchange off the queens, and now we get this pass D pawn. And opposite coloured bishops again, but we're just going to pick up the A pawn, and then we're going to invade with the king. So Stockfish tried its very best, put the bishop on D8 to blockade, and then tried to stop the king coming in, and then went for this rook and pawn ending. It gets some counterplay in actual fact, because it's trying all the tricks there. King takes C6, King D8 would be all right for black, but Rook G8. Black's trying all the tricks here just to try and get some counterplay with its pass pawn on the A file. But white's just picked up too many pawns, and it's also picking up the H4 pawn. We'll blockade with the rook, and then those 4 pawns will be more than enough of a match for black's king and rook. Rook A1, F4. So black manages to get the H3 pawn, but now these pawns start to roll. And again, black's problem is that black can't both stop a couple of connected pass pawns from white and also keep its extra pawns. So rook E3, king H4, king there, king G5, rook takes C4, rook A3 is just losing. So black waits, but now these other pawns start rolling. And well,
yeah, you're not going to be able to stop all of these. Yeah,
Stockfish was minus 200 or something like this stage, and I think a couple more moves, and then Stockfish resigned there. So there we are. I mean, I thought that was a truly impressive game from Leela there. In particular, just the way that it built up. Well, first of all, finding this this incredibly complicated strategical idea of sacrificing this C pawn for long-term play. I thought it was fantastic. It really was for Leela just to discover that by itself. I mean, really, that's the product of 20 or 30 years human experience in the King's Indian, and then simply the way that once Stockfish cracked, I suppose you could say, just played this move A5. That Leela just kept on organising its pieces, optimising its pieces, and just made it look just like a complete force win. I mean, it's just very hard to see where on earth Stockfish could have done any better, So really impressive game. Really gave black absolutely no chance there. And that was, well, I think the Sufi had probably already been won by them, but that really, put clear distance between Leela and Stockfish, and really showed, I think, the reason why Leela managed to win this match. Simply, in these types of positions, Leela was really able to get a controlled victory, just without any risk whatsoever. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that game. If you haven't subscribed yet,
please subscribe.
Exactly. And do also, if you haven't yet, do take a look at our book, Game Changer.
Yeah, really good games in there of AlphaZero and Stockfish.
Exactly. And otherwise, just keep well, keep safe, and keep on watching. I think we're going to do a couple more games in the Superfinal. And, well, hopefully by the time we've done that, it'll be time for the exciting end of Season 18 of the TCEC. Thanks very much for watching.
Thank you for watching.